You can go ahead and start, Kurt.
Perfect. Hello. Bonjour tout le monde. And thank you for attending. Today's virtual municipal candidate forum is brought to you by the Urban and Community Studies Institute at the University of New Brunswick, St. John. And tonight, we are actually hosting the At-Large Candidates Forum. And I'm pleased to announce that the majority of the candidates that are on the ballot are here with us. And so we should have a very good discussion. My name is Kurt Peacock. And like many of you here tonight, I have some really strong passions about my city, St. John. I'm a proudly UNB grad. For a period of time, I was a visiting fellow at UNBSJ and later a civic affairs columnist with the Telegraph Journal. I currently am working on fixing up the Carlton Martello Tower on the west side of St. John with Parks Canada. So it's a really fun project to be involved with. But enough about me. Tonight is about the candidates and their ideas about the city. And so we'll soon turn to them. Before we turn to the candidates, though, I would like to have a proper land acknowledgement. We are, of course, the land that we are standing on is the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqey and Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Wolastoqey and Mi'kmaq peoples first signed with the British Crown way back in 1725. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized the Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey title and established the rules for which was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. I should also add that just this afternoon, I was down in Charlotte County meeting with the Pescadamagati, who are, of course, entering into a modern treaty relationship with the Crown. And obviously, they've been in the St. Croix region for millennia. So it's very important to acknowledge their presence. I'd like to also thank, on behalf of the Urban and Community Studies Institute, I'd like to thank UNB's ITS team for assisting us with technical support for tonight's virtual forum, UNB's Communications Department for helping to get the word out to the St. John community, the Neighborhood Action Group, Eastern Circle St. John, Black Lives Matter New Brunswick, Chroma New Brunswick, Kaya Hemmings, UNB St. John's Students Representative Council, and the Graduate Students Association. I'd like to thank all of them for submitting questions tonight. And of course, I'd like to thank all the candidates that are here tonight for their participation. Before we dive in to the forum proper, I'll just highlight some of the rules that are with this virtual event. It's being recorded and it will be uploaded to YouTube for folks throughout St. John to watch if they are unable to participate live. All the candidates who are here tonight have been sent their questions ahead of time, giving them time to read and understand each question. The candidates will be given 2 minutes first off to introduce themselves to the community. I will then ask questions in order and say the candidate's name when it is their turn to answer. All candidates' microphones will be muted until it is their turn to answer. The candidates will be given 2 minutes each to answer a question, and at the end of their time, the mic will be automatically muted. I will then move on to the next candidate and continue in this order until all of our questions have been asked. The candidates will then be given 2 minutes for a closing statement. Of course, the order of the candidates will rotate throughout the evening. So without further ado, let's begin. And we'll start with opening statements. And I guess first off tonight, we'll start with Neil Clements. Neil, over to you.
Neil, you want to make sure you unmute.
No, I thought you unmuted me from afar. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all tonight. I was quite honored to receive the invitation, and quite frankly, I appreciate the opportunity to do the deep dive that it caused me to do when it comes to access to information and understanding the issues underlying the questions. I do appreciate it. So I'm a lawyer in St. John, as most of you know. I've been working in the regulatory field for a lot of years, and I just want you to know, I'm doing this because I want what's right for St. John, growth and change. And as I've said on many occasions, that includes financial growth, population growth, but specifically for me, diversity, equity, equality, and inclusion in the city of St. John, which we'll dive into through some of these questions. So I do appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Neil. Next up, we have Brent Harris.
Well, hello, Kurt. Can everybody hear me? Just checking. Awesome. It is a privilege to be with you all today and have had so many of you put your faith in me to run as a candidate. I have been working tirelessly in St. John for over 5 years to make meaningful impact in the areas of our city that have been forgotten and neglected. The people who live in these areas feel abandoned. We see the proof of that in our low voter turnout. Today, I speak to you from the perspective of someone who has worked in these areas, as a father of 2 children, as a builder, as a husband to a woman who fights for women's voice in healthcare, and as an entrepreneur with a social enterprise. I have narrowed my message down to 3 topics: livability, sustainability, and housing. Under the topic of sustainability, I believe we need councillors to stand by the 10-year financial plan which is embedded in Plan SJ. Instead of finding fault with it, as some have done, we need to learn how to work with what we have so we do not stifle the momentum and the inertia that is taking us on a better track. Under the topic of livability, we must boldly pursue new initiatives and opportunities to make our city work for people. We must confront overbuilt road systems that are not working for pedestrians, cyclists, and those with mobility issues. We need to finish the Harbor Passage, which has been used by thousands of St. Johners, especially during COVID-19. We also need to focus on supporting our priority neighborhoods and their community centers with the operational funding they need to make the impact they must. Finally, housing. It's about revitalization. We need new leadership, continuous improvement, and new automation policies to fight dilapidation. Each building we tear down is proof of failure somewhere in our housing system, policies, and in our government. Without major intervention, it is impossible to build new affordable housing. So we have to look at new innovative ways of salvaging the assets we have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brent. Next up is Steve Henderson.
Hello, I'm Steve Henderson. I'm a business owner in Uptown St. John. You may have seen me around there. I have chosen to run this time because my business was built for the community, because I wanted to bring people a place for them to gather and play their games. And so I chose to run this time as a chance to give back to the community. So there are a lot of issues that St. John has that need tackling, and I think we need new people that have new ideas, that want to work with our community to help with all of these ideas. So thank you for taking the time to listen, and hopefully everybody here has some great ideas.
Thank you, Steve. After you, Steve, we have Dean Secord. Dean?
Oh, good evening. First of all, I'm happy to be here, and I want to thank the organizers of UNDSJ, Urban and Community Studies Institute, and my fellow candidates for making this forum happen. I've lived in the city here for nearly 40 years. I've raised my family here, I've worked here, and I volunteered here. And this city is important to me. I've wanted to be involved in our city politics for some time. I'm always talking to my neighbors, community members, and friends wherever I can about our city. I feel this is the time for me to put my name forward along with my experience and leadership skills to work for the citizens of this city. Working for the citizens of the city, I will be available. I'm retired and I have the time. I will listen. I'm not an expert, but I will listen to the experts, and I will, as a team member, take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Next, we have Guy Verna. Guy?
Merci. Bonsoir tout le monde. Hello everybody. My name is Guy Verna. Merci de nous avoir ici ce soir. C'est très bien. Un bon débat va se dérouler et je suis un francophone. Ma première idée est de me débattre d'avoir un francophone élu à la Chambre de commerce, à la Chambre de représentants de Saint John. J'habite ici depuis 10 ans et je connais très bien la ville. Je connais beaucoup de candidats ici. Je suis très heureux de débattre avec eux ce soir. Mes réponses vont être en anglais et en français. Donc, je vous invite à continuer avec moi. Je cherche à être le premier francophone à être élu comme conseiller à la ville de Saint-Jean, le troisième noir à être élu à la ville de Saint-Jean, et ainsi d'être le premier haïtien à être élu à la ville de Saint-Jean. Donc, je me promène dans la ville, je connais beaucoup de gens et je fais beaucoup de développement, de bénévolat dans la ville. So my name is Guy Verna, and I'm running to be councillor at City Hall. And I speak French. My first language is French. And I'm looking to be the first French speaking to be elected at City Hall, the third Black to be elected at City Hall, and also the first Haitian person to be elected at City Hall. I know the city since 10 years, and I've been developing a lot around the city, been knowing a lot of people, working with a lot of kids, lots of adults, and working with elderly and also people that are in need in the North End, and which is also to develop many places in St. John, like the Reversing Falls, which is a dump for me, and I'm always cleaning up there, and nobody is cleaning up. So we are there, and I'm happy to debate with my fellow friends tonight and to find a solution for everything in town. Thank you for having me.
Merci, Guy. C'est un grand plaisir de vous rencontrer. Next up, we have Artie Watson. Artie?
Bonjour. Hello. I'm Artie Watson. Thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity. I consider it both an honor and a privilege to be able to step up as a candidate for St. John City Common Council. I'm grateful for those who sacrificed their lives to give us this freedom called democracy. I'm a lifelong resident of St. John, and I'm quite familiar with the challenges faced by many residents in our priority neighborhoods, having experienced the cycle of intergenerational poverty myself. I've always challenged myself to do better, regardless of my deficits and struggles, and I have overcome much adversity. I have a diverse work history and have owned and operated a small delivery, shuttle, and tour guide business in the past. I feel my life and work experiences can contribute to an inclusive mix to the council chamber in making sound decisions as we move forward in these uncertain times. Thank you for this opportunity once again.
Thank you, Artie. Okay, well, without further ado, we'll dive right in to the first of 6 questions that we've shared with the candidates. The first question is on the matter of housing. And the question to all the candidates is, what is your position on the current housing crisis in St. John? There's lots that have been discussed in the community, ranging on matters from affordable housing to rent control to the issue of condemned buildings, property taxes, gentrification. So we want to hear from you. What's your position? First, we'll turn to Brent Harris. Brent?
Thanks, Kurt. So 3 years ago, myself and a group of 40 residents and 6 companies banded together to try and save one of these rundown buildings that you're talking about at 96 Victoria. We partnered with the Tool Library, with One Change and the St. John Land Bank to make it happen. By the time we had gutted this building, we had a price tag of around $270,000 on the table to rehab it, which would have put 3 affordable units back on the market. Had it not caught fire from an accident that occurred while we were fundraising, we would have succeeded. But this was a failure in our city and for our city to capitalize on a groundswell of citizen engagement and action to solve this problem. Old policies around engaging with rundown buildings, a lack of definition of what a dangerous building is, and a misunderstanding by those in leadership about what the Local Governance Act, specifically Section 137, provides us with is to blame. The Governance Act specifically states that cities may repair buildings and build a province the same way they do when they tear them down. But we've become very focused on just tearing them down just by habit. Housing is a precious asset, and I fear that too few councillors in the past have understood this. If we had known 5 years ago that the cost of building new developments would skyrocket in 2020 and 2021, people would have acted differently. It's now imperative to protect the housing stock we have and mandate its care so we can meet the needs of our neighbors who desperately need safe and affordable housing. I support the calls by the Tenants' Rights Coalition of NB to pursue a range of issues that can bring the support our tenants need and for housing justice. Many of these things require provincial action, but we here in St. John need to provide the courage and leadership municipally that we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Brent. Steve, the housing question is over to you.
Okay. Well, simply put, we do need more housing that is affordable. That goes without saying. We, as the council, could work with the landlords and the province to help create more mixed income and subsidized options for people. There, on the topic of rent control, looking at caps on rental increases is a very good idea, because I've heard from a lot of people that they've had their rents go up astronomically in recent years, and that can't be. You can't sustain your population if you're constantly driving them out by raising their rents. As for the condemned buildings, I would like to see them be able to be restored, but for the ones that you can't restore, bringing them down and selling the lots would bring in some income for the city. That would be a good thing as well. As for the homeowners and landlords, the double taxation on non-owner occupied territories makes for high costs for everybody. So again, that's something that'll come back up when we talk about the tax reform question. And as far as gentrification, while we shouldn't be afraid of success and growth, we do need that. We need to continue making areas that are attainable for everybody. So you can't keep raising the rents to make things unattainable to many. Like a middle class couple that can't afford to live uptown just doesn't make sense. So we need to make sure to bring everything back to be able to be affordable in the right places for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean, what's your take on the housing issue?
Well, it's nice to have a forum like this to listen to other candidates, because I think we're all on the same page here of how this is a crisis. And when people, they don't understand. I'm all for growth. not be mistaken here. But we can't and we shouldn't, put at the expense of our vulnerable communities. We can't be pushing people out for big buildings to come in. They've been there for years, and you know what? They should be living there. Years ago, there was a grant through the federal and provincial governments for landlords to fix up their houses, their buildings, to keep their rents low for low-income people. If elected to council, that's what I'd be looking at. Where are these grants? The federal and provincial government is putting a lot of money out there. We should be reaching out to the other levels of government and requesting some of this money, working with them. There's too many empty lots out there that we could work with the landowners to build something up. So, we have to work as a team. We have to work with respect with other governments to get the money to bring forth to the city for the lower income people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Guy? C'est à vous maintenant. Guy, can you check to see if you're on mute?
Okay. Hello, I'm back. Okay. I think on the housing place that we need to have more affordable housing, and I think most of the candidates are on the same page on that. We need to have work. I think it's the major thing. That's to work with the province to have affordable housing into the city. Then to work with the owners of building that they are going to tear down, that to make sure that if we can repair them, because a house, like Steve said, which is not capable to stand, need to be tear down and to be built up right after. Next to me, I have a house that has been tear down since 3 years and not being rebuilt. So that's 4 apartments that we lose into the street. So it's for housing that not going anywhere. Gratification, we need to have to work also with the province and to work as a councillors with the mayor to make sure where we can bring the city further up. Because it's not the decision of one person, it's the decision of a group that to make sure that we can bring the city more higher as possible. Also, property tax, it's also working with the province, but working with ourselves to know where we can bring the taxes to people and to help owner of buildings that to make sure that we can develop what they need. So that's my answer.
Merci, Guy. Artie, over to you on housing.
My position is one of concern. I feel we must work with stakeholders to address these concerns to ensure the best possible outcomes. We need to continue to press the provincial government for municipal tax reform and autonomy for raising revenue, and continue to press the federal and provincial governments to follow through with their affordable housing initiatives they promised during their election campaigns. We need to work with the developers to incorporate a plan that is inclusive by entertaining the idea of adding mixed income housing to potential developments. As a person who grew up in a poor neighborhood and had experienced gentrification, and it is what ignited the spark and the passion to put me here where I am today. I feel it is important that all members of a community are included in the planning process that affects them, regardless of their socio-economic status. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. Neil, we'll turn to you to finish off the discussion on housing.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. First off, I'd like to maybe piggyback on at least one of the my colleagues' comments. And Brent, I agree. We shouldn't just be creating empty lots and tearing things down or forcing landlords to tear things down. We're the oldest city in the country. We've got a history in that infrastructure that we should support, right? One of the ways of doing that, however, outside of how you did it, which is fantastic, and if there were more groups that were willing to jump into that investment like that, that'd be great. But the city itself could create, just as an option, a housing corporation like other cities in the country have. And rather than tear these opportunities for investment down, buy them, refit them, renovate them. And then they belong to the city, and the city can decide who lives there, what the rent's going to be, what the mix will be. Just my thoughts on that particular piece. When it comes to affordable housing also, like we're obviously seeing new development in the city. Things are being built. At least one of the developments in the uptown area is going to be a mixed unit, or excuse me, have mixed units, affordable housing and market. But for these other new developments, now I'm pro-development. I want to see the city grow. However, we have a corporate responsibility, I think, to meet certain human rights, like having a house to live in. And as a municipality, we have the opportunity to legislate that authority in the form of a bylaw, like other municipalities across the country have taken the opportunity to do. And with these new developments, rather than encourage or incentivize, we can actually tell new developers, by the way, you have to provide a plan that includes affordable housing, right? This is another opportunity. And
Neil, sorry, you've ran past the 2 minutes, but I can tell you have lots of passionate ideas on the matter of housing, and that's obviously something that we endorse. But again, I'll just remind all the candidates that the mic will turn off automatically at 2 minutes. The next question we have in front of us is very straightforward. It's what is your position on tax reform? And while the question is quite straightforward, I hope we have a full diversity of responses. So moving down the list, we'll let Steve answer the question first. Steve, what's your position on tax reform?
Okay, well, we know the current council and mayor have begun work on this. So when the new council comes in, we need to make it a priority to complete the work that's been started. Our city has so many outlying areas and residents in those outlying areas that work in and use the facilities in our city. So we need to work with the province to bring more of the tax money back to the city. So that's basically what it comes down to, is we just need to get more from the province back to St. John. That's really all I have to say about it at the moment.
Thank you, Steve. Dean, what's your position on tax reform?
Well, this issue's been on the table at council for some time, and my view on this is that if elected, year one, we have to work on this tax reform. The present council have had the time to put this forth. It is at the provincial government level right now, but it's going to be another, I guess, a year, 2 years before they make a decision. That's unacceptable for our citizens. We pay $1.78 in taxes. And for our citizens to sit back and wait for another couple of years to see what kind of a tax reform the provincial government's going to come with is unacceptable in my mind. So we're all on the same page here about the tax reform. We have to get together as a council and go forth to the provincial government. The MLAs are living in this city. They got a responsibility as well. So we have to work with them, cooperate with them, but we have to be tough with them. And that's our money. And we want more money back because when you cut $10 million out of a budget and you lose a lot of services and the province is sitting there with the money in their bank account, it's unacceptable. So we have to get to the province, work as a council collectively, and show that we're, first of all on the same page, and then get to the province and say we want a bigger portion.
Thank you, Dean. Guy, over to you on tax reform.
All right. Tax reform is, as everybody will say, and I'm saying it, it's a need to work with the province first. There is a job that already started by the previous council that I hope that we can continue working on it, that to make sure that we have proper taxes, get more money back to the city, that we can provide and do more work into the city. But the main job is to work with the province, make sure that we can get more money back on the taxes. That's to work at the city. That's my words.
Merci, Guy. Artie, what are your thoughts on tax reform?
As I stated and mentioned previously, we need to press the provincial government for tax reform. This is their responsibility and it must be addressed to ensure fairness. Reforms are necessary to help alleviate the burdens for those who are struggling to make ends meet now, and it will help attract people and investment to our city, resulting in a larger tax base that will help us provide adequate service and reduce taxes over time. If elected, I will work on building relationships with provincial and federal representatives to help address our concerns on the municipal level. Thank you.
Thanks, Artie. Neil, what are your thoughts on tax reform? Oh, Neil, just make sure you're off mute. Sorry.
I believe the provincial government needs to get out of the business of tax reform. I think it's out of the business of tax collection when it comes to the municipalities. I believe also that it's required, not unlike Artie, we need to build stronger relationships with those folks in Fredericton to ensure we can actually make it happen. So I've been doing that over the last year or so. Again, it's a provincial concern, but I think also this new Regional Economic Development Corporation, that's a huge lobby because nothing changes without a lobby. As a municipality, we don't have the legislative authority to deal with it, but as a lobby, that's where change is. And I think that's an opportunity within that organization to lobby for that reform. But it has to change, and the council as a whole, I think, won't be a challenge to get consensus on that.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks. Okay, Brent, over to you.
Thanks, Kurt. And you know what? I 100% agree with Neil. We are going to get action by having groups like Envision SJ, the new Regional Economic Development Agency, lobby for it. But I'm shocked to hear that no one has mentioned the reports that we already have had sitting on a shelf for 60 years. This has not been in one government. This has been shot down since the 60s. We've been calling for municipal reforms around taxation, around industry tax for a long time. You know, Jerry Lowe's running into South End. He went to battle on industry reform and was shot down by the Liberals. We have 5 PC cabinet ministers in this city. If we don't have a working relationship with the province now on this issue, what do we have to do? And I think what we have to do is get louder. We need our councillors to be on op-eds. We need them to post blogs. We need to take courage during election season and saying, you know what, this city puts out 20% of this province's GDP. And we have way bigger risks with a refinery in our backyard. We have protective services that we have to pay bigger sums of money to so they can properly protect us. It's not okay for us to just have the same share that other municipalities do. And by the way, we get less than 20 cents of the dollar that's taxed here back. You know, we get the same thing Fredericton and Moncton do. We get the same thing Edmonton does. And Miramichi, it's got to change, and we have to get louder. We have to have more courage and more boldness. You know, the Kitchen and Slack report has laid it out. We've got our city's own report that's laid it out. And again, it comes down to communication, and we need councillors who are willing to be brave on this. And I think that's what I would like to do as a councillor at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Okay, now we'll move to the third question of tonight's forum. And that is to all the candidates, if you're elected, how will you show support for St. John's 2SLGBTQIA plus community? Dean, I'll turn to you first for a response.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And you know what? This is a good question. You know, I don't have all the answers, but I'll tell you, I would be more than willing, if elected, to, you know what, have a committee. You know, they're citizens of the city, and that's what's being forgotten here. You know, I look at it and there's obstacles being put up here, and it's blocking them. And how can we address them? You know, does the 2SLGBTQIA plus community feel comfortable dealing with council? We have to make people comfortable. We have to make them welcome. And again, I don't have all the answers, but I want to know them. If I'm sitting on council, I want to see a committee put together and have an open dialogue with the groups. They shouldn't be afraid. We should know. We should know their history. We should have them welcomed. So that is my intent. Sit down, have a conversation, you know, make them feel welcome. And the only way we can do it is show them respect. And as a councillor at large, if elected, that's what I'll be doing.
Thank you, Dean. Guy, same question. Over to you.
À être élu, je vais travailler avec la communauté LBGTQ. Personnellement, j'ai un fils qui est LBGTQ et que je sais qu'ils sont complètement ignorés, que ce soit par la ville, par la province, et qui sont jugés par les gens autour. So, as it is, I have a son of myself, which is LGBTQ, and I know how they are getting judged around the city. They have all my support to work with. As Dean said, I'm a proactive to do a committee to work with them, what we can do for them around the city and also in the province, because as it is, they are being judged, mystified, and put aside. So the LGBTQ committee will be on if I'm elected. Thank you.
Merci, Guy. Artie, the question is in front of you now.
If elected, I will be respectful and available to all with different views and preferences. We are a city made up of a growing, diverse minority community, and we must make every effort to make everyone feel respected, included, and welcomed. I will treat everyone with equality and equity and will help shape and support policies that help council members, community organizations, and the city staff to ensure that their concerns and interests are met. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. Neil, the question is in your corner now. Oh, Neil, just make sure you're off mute. Sorry.
As I was saying, St. John is one of the oldest cities in the country, and we have no policy which would direct anybody to suggest that my opinion, the opinions of those communities are even important. We have no policies, or anything of any kind which would direct our administration to treat members of that community and the BIPOC community equally. So I would definitely support that idea. And I already support these communities in my own personal beliefs in equality and inclusion, right? As my other colleagues have suggested, you really got to listen to what folks say to you, and respect that and take action. And, if it's a committee we need, let's do that. But the one thing that you have to do first is recognize the rights of those individuals in those communities. I get it. And that's what I would do as I always have, is respect those opinions, respect those communities, and assist where I can.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, Brent, you're next.
Thank you, Kurt. So, recently a new organization called Chroma NB was launched. It was established as a rallying place and support network for people in our 2SL LGBTQIA plus community. And, showing up and showing support, showing support means actually showing up and when invited. And, somebody came through the other day at the Tool Library and wanted to talk about doing a workshop here with a member of their community from Chroma, teaching it in our workshop. And to me, that was an honor and a privilege, to have them come in and feel welcome enough to feel that they want to use this space. And I was encouraged by that. And I think that's what it's about. We have to make space in our council. We have to find ways to set aside our privilege, set aside our powers, and have their voice elevated, right? Invite them to council meetings. And if it's not a council meeting that they want to present at, whatever it is, raise their, make time for them outside of council so that you can bring their concerns and help them action their ideas. Often people in our LGBTQIA plus community, they don't feel like they have a way to action their ideas. They see the problems, they see the change, but the way forward is missing. And that's where we come in. That's the privilege and opportunity we have as councilors to say, man, like this is a great idea you have. I can see how it will really impact the community and bring this community together around this. Let's go this way with it. And so that's what I would like to do as a councilor at large, is make that space and help them action ideas.
Thank you, Brent. Steve, I'll let you finish the discussion on this third question.
Okay, well, like everybody else has said, it's about respect. We have to respect these people, respect the community that they're part of, respect where they come from, and respect what they need and want. I have many friends and family members that are part of the community. So I understand and know some of these people and so I know where they come from and the struggles they go through. While I haven't had to deal with these struggles myself, I've seen others. So it's understandable. So to show my support, all I can do is be there when the citizens come to me with this. And I would happily join their parades or other pride events and show my support publicly and wave the flag with every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so now we are on the fourth question of the evening. And full disclosure, I often walk or bike to work. So I'm very curious as to the response to this specific question, although I will say I love hearing the responses to all the questions thus far. But here we go with question number 4. Cycling, walking, and public transit are often the modes of transportation for many people in the St. John community. In particular, those who reside in the priority neighborhoods and school students of all ages. Yet inadequate public transit and dangerous cycling and walking conditions put many of these folks at risk. As someone who bikes through Sims Corner, I can agree on that very point. How would you address street safety through the lens of active transportation? Guy, vous êtes premier.
Merci, Kurt. Pour ce qui a trait de la sécurité à bicyclette et des transports, je dois dire qu'on doit avoir plus de lignes, de tracés pour pouvoir permettre aux cyclistes de pouvoir fonctionner. Comme par exemple, vous dites le Sims Corner, très dangereux pour les bicyclettes. On doit avoir quelque chose qui puisse permettre aux cyclistes de passer. What I'm saying is we need to have lines, trace, and make sure that the bicycle can be traveling to those big streets, like the Sims Corner, which is that where you go. And I go there too on bike. And to tell you the truth, sometimes I'm afraid to get there. Sometimes I get out of my bike to walk around that because there's no car stopping, nothing. So we need to have a better transportation with the city transit. Right now, it's really ugly. You wait an hour on the street on Douglas Avenue, then you're not going anywhere. Sometimes I walk from where I am at Sims Corner, then I get to the uptown before the bus came. And I follow the route of the bus. So it's really ugly, no good. We're not helping anybody. Also, the city presently, especially on winter, they don't clean Somerset Street properly. People are breaking their legs just crossing that bridge to go uptown. And many people cross that bridge to go uptown on bike or walking. Snow is there for all winter. Nobody is cleaning. And there's lots of people on North End that cross the bridge every morning. At least 1,000 people a day. So we need to have a better control on transit transport, on creating a route for bicycle, like on Rothsay Avenue. There is no route.
Oh, sorry, Guy. Les 2 minutes, c'est tout fin. Thank you, though. Artie, what are your views on active transportation?
It is important that we provide our citizens with access to safe and reliable modes of transportation. At no time should we expect children to walk to school, or for anyone for that matter, walk on roadways during the winter season, putting their safety at risk because sidewalks are not cleared of snow and ice. Adequate equipment and essential personnel must be a priority in maintaining safe commuting for our citizens. We must be diligent in building relationships with our provincial and federal representatives for access to funding to help maintain and to build our transportation and operational infrastructure. Our transit services has faced some critical challenges, and I will look at every avenue available to maintain and increase the level of transit service we provide with the help and recommendations from the council members and city staff. The Stantec report will be a valuable resource to draw from as we move forward towards building a sustainable public transit service. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. Neil, the question is in your corner now. Oh, just...
Last September during the election And again, I forget the name of the group and his name. It's on a note on my desk in my office where I should be. Having said that, he brought to the table a lot of very good ideas relative to the infrastructure of the city, which would support mobility, that is, bike lanes, etc. I used to live in Ketapek, and when they put that line down that Westfield Road and called it a bike lane, I thought it was actually a bike trap, because the road already was challenged to have two vehicles on it, and it really needed an infrastructure change, not a paint line, right? So I would definitely support the idea within the budget of change and upgrade an infrastructure which would provide a safe environment for our cyclists. I used to bike to work every day from Garnet Settlement when I was young, so I get it. And I'm a health and safety expert. I get it. As far as our public transportation, I think the challenge, at least as I observe it, having been on the bus, which is I don't take it because it doesn't take me where I want to go, is better community access in the neighborhoods. I get the arterial idea when it comes to transporting people, but let's look at the neighborhood concept of the actual, the buses being able to go through the neighborhoods versus it stops here, everybody must go there. Create an opportunity for those who maybe can't access the bus at that stop to get it somewhere else in a timely manner. And that was the other challenge, at least in my opinion, was the timeliness of that particular mode of transportation. So, and again, back to the bicycles. Imagine how we could be supporting the whole greenhouse emissions challenge if we had 1,000 people biking to work every day because it was available and easy. Just a thought.
Thank you, Neil. A very good thought in my mind. Brent, over to you.
Thanks, Kurt. We've mentioned the Stantec report, and the transit department is currently reviewing that and trying to action items. But the Stantec report imminently says transit's lean. If we make streets safe for pedestrians and cycling, we make it safer for cars, we make it safer for people, we make it safer for our aging population. It's cringeworthy trying to watch somebody cross 6 lanes of road when that road doesn't need to be 6 lanes. So there's 3 things around transit and active transportation. 1, I think we need to renegotiate the advertising contract. Right now, St. John Transit has a third party handle all of the advertising that happens on buses. They pay a lease to the city for this contract, but they do not have to share any profits. No, this is something that needs to be negotiated. The transit union president and I spoke, and driver, as well. They told me that one contract for advertising alone, in some cases, has paid what that lease was worth. One advertising contract putting signs on buses. Like, there's no limitation here. They can charge whatever the market will bear. And this is a way we can generate revenue. We need to commit new funding to St. John Transit. And this is where I'll put my neck on the line and say this is a priority. We need to protect the wage escalation policy, right? People deserve a fair wage, no question. But we got people who can't get to work safely, right? And so this is where we need to focus our money. If we're able to get tax reform, if we're able to generate new revenues in our budget, we have Move SJ, I know we have Plan SJ, but within that, I'm a councilor that's going to prioritize transit, and we need road diets. This is a long-term strategy that focuses on making city less car-friendly and more pedestrian and cycling-friendly. As we reduce road lanes that are needed and redevelop roadways for cycling, we will save money on the $8.5 million budget to resurface roads every year. Even if we can claw back $500,000 by doing this road diet, we can put that money back into creating.
Oh, sorry, Brent. You ran out of time, but like everyone else who ran out of time, I appreciate the passion. Steve, we'll turn to you on the matter of active transportation.
Okay, thanks. So as somebody that has regularly through my life taken the bus, I agree. Our transit system needs some improvements. I currently live on a main line where the bus comes every 15 minutes, so I'm lucky there. But people that live in the more priority neighborhoods, the bus needs to go there more often. It needs to go there later in the day and earlier in the morning. as for they've outlined that in the Stantec report, and we can all read those ideas. They're great ideas. But as for the cycling, I agree. We adding more lines to the road so that cars can know where the cycling lanes are better. That's great. We need to do that. And for people walking, there's a lot of intersections that are dangerous for people to cross. Adding some lights where you can push a button so that cars know that somebody's trying to cross and they'll have to stop. Another thing that we really need to do. Make it safer for everybody. These ideas, they'll help people get to work easier. So, thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Dean, we'll let you finish off the discussion on the various issues related to active transportation.
Thank you. Yeah, this is important. And like you, Kurt, I've biked through Sims Corner. I know you kind of put your head down and just hope that you can get through it. When I first came to St. John, I had to take the bus from East St. John to get uptown for my work. So I know how important the transportation modes are. How do we fix this? The biggest thing for the bicycling, the walking, is safety. And we have to educate the drivers out there on our cyclists. They have to know the rules as well as the cyclists. And we have to educate them. The bus services, it is frustrating to see how the bus service has been hit. I've talked to people that work out east. They get off work at 9 o'clock and they either got to take a taxi or walk uptown because there's no bus services. We've talked about the tax reform, again, going to the province. This is a big issue. And yes, it should be a priority for all councillors because the transportation going into our priority communities has to stay there. That's their only means of transportation, other than walking or taking a bike, and it's hard in the wintertime to do that. So as a councillor, I haven't looked at the Stantec report, but it's another report that council has to act on. We can't sit back and, again, throw it up on the shelf. So I'd be more than willing to sit down, work with the community on that, and better our transportation process.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. Okay, well, we'll now turn to our fifth question on the matter of Indigenous reconciliation. For those of you who joined the forum just at the very beginning, you'll know that we started with the land acknowledgement, but anyone who has followed Canada's path towards reconciliation knows that it's a heck of a lot more than just land acknowledgement. And so my question to the candidates is very specific. How will you contribute to the City of St. John's commitment to reconciliation with the First Nations communities in the surrounding areas and throughout New Brunswick? Artie, you're first up on this important question.
I feel to truly address the commitment of reconciliation with our surrounding First Nation communities, we have to build a new and lasting relationship built on mutual respect and trust. A public apology for past policies is only a first step. We must make our First Nations peoples feel confident in our efforts. We cannot do this alone, but we need the full support of our federal and provincial governments. Making amends for centuries of colonial practices of oppression and neglect is necessary and just, and we must do all we can to achieve this goal. We must build a strong and lasting friendship for future generations. If elected as a member of St. John City Council, I will table a motion calling for an annual summit of surrounding First Nations leaders and government representatives from all levels to serve as a foundation to create and monitor our progress on policies that will aid us in the reconciliation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. Neil, we'll turn to you on this this important question.
I agree. It is a very important question, but more importantly are the actions that can be taken. So the first female Clements to come to Atlantic Canada in the 1800s was Mary Broadfoot Clements. She was a Mohawk. So in my family, there is a Native lineage. I had the opportunity while practicing in Fredericton to work with two of the best, the top treaty rights lawyers, at least in this particular province or the region. And I understand that we have, as a country, a fiduciary duty to our brothers and sisters, as a province, a similar fiduciary duty, and as a community, a municipality, a similar fiduciary duty. It doesn't water down, just the authority is less. I think that if we do not take every opportunity to walk our talk when it comes to these particular statements, as you suggested, then we're not doing anything. Words are words. But when we have opportunities in this municipality to recognize the rights, the ownership, and the reconciliation opportunities, we should, in every instance, look at that and work together as a council to ensure that we reflect that opinion and exercise, and actually look at those rights and respect them, period. End of story.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Brent, over to you.
Thanks, Kurt. It's great that we have Eastern Circle SJ who's committed some questions tonight. There's groups right here in St. John who don't feel heard and don't feel welcome to contribute in ways. And, we as a city, we have an opportunity now. We see down in the United States some of the implications of not acting about the reality of our history. You see tearing down statues, protests, that are warranted because of so much so much ignoring has happened. People haven't listened to the people in these communities, and we haven't had an honest telling of our history. And so, one of the things I was listening to recently was a UNB researcher who was talking about a massive and major portage route that tracked through the land that St. John sits on. For the Mi'kmaq, the Passamaquoddy, the Wolastoq. These are important historical things that we should enshrine and remember and have accurate tellings historically. We need the land acknowledgement at City Council. And more than that, we need to be engaged with groups who are here working toward reconciliation. And that's what I want to commit to doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, what are your thoughts on City of St. John and reconciliation?
Well, like everybody else is saying, it comes down to respect again. We need to respect the past. We need to acknowledge where the First Nations have been. We need to acknowledge what the colonialism has done. So I see the provincial government has recently formed a committee on the very topic of reconciliation. So following the activities of that committee, I would support the implementation of a branch of that in St. John or a similar committee where we would invite people to help with members of the community of the First Nations, etc., that would give them a voice. If we had the committee bring their voice to the council, that would help them be heard more easily. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Dean, the question's in front of you currently.
Thank you. And this is an important question. And I'm somewhat surprised and disappointed that this has not been already done at council. We need to lead by example and implement the land acknowledgements before every meeting. We need to work with the First Nations communities and offering a cultural awareness training to our city employees. It's being done in another community, in Saskatoon, and from my understanding, it's working well. We need to listen to understand and take action together.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. Guy, c'est votre question maintenant.
C'est la bonne question. The thing is, as everybody say, it's respect. Presently, if I go around the city, there is nothing, almost nothing representing First Nation. The only thing that I saw, which is representing First Nation, it's under the bridge, which is not many people goes there to see that. So we need to have something in the middle of the city representing First Nation. I'm willing to work with them, to form a committee, to have a committee with them, to bring them ahead. No indigenous people have been trying to be on the city council. We never had one on my research. So we need to work and bring them forward. Work with the province to make sure that we can enhance their participation. As someone which is working around the city, I have invited many of them to participate in many activities that I have prepared around the city. And none of them show up. For what? That because they are afraid, because they are afraid to be judged, they are afraid of many things, or they just don't care anymore. And this is something which is wrong, because they have been ignored by the city, ignored by many people, and judged by many people. Because I have heard people in the street saying that, oh, he's an indigenous, he's drunk. But the guy is maybe sick. You know, it's judging people for nothing. Because he's indigenous, he's poor, he's that. Many people are saying that they are stealing money. Why? We are on their land, and we are misrespecting them. So we need to work with indigenous to bring them forward. That's my word.
Thank you. Thank you, Guy, and thank you all for your thoughts. Guy, when you referenced the historical mention of the Indigenous community near the bridge, of course, I have no need to remind the candidates that when Champlain stumbled upon St. John way back in 1604, there was, in fact, an Indigenous village right at the western edge of the Harbor Bridge. And so this really is very much Indigenous land. And I think that the more we accept this and discuss this, I think the better for everyone. So we'll now turn to the sixth question of the evening. And this one is another one that all these questions have been fantastic, but as a moderator, I must say, I'm always curious as to how the candidates will respond to some of these questions. And years ago, I was involved with the One Change in the North End. And obviously, the city police were involved with the organization. And so I'm curious as to where you may fall on the question of community policing. So to all the candidates, the question is, what are your thoughts on community policing? In particular, where it stands now, where it's been in the past, and how do you see it being relevant in the priority neighborhoods in the future? Neil, we'll start off this question with you.
I appreciate the opportunity. So when I think of community policing, I first think, well, what are the police trained to do? Police are trained to investigate and apply lethal force in the amelioration of crime. When I think of community policing in high priority neighborhoods, I think, why are they high priority? Because there's a gap in education, there's a gap in income, income employment, maybe a gap in that healthcare access piece, but those first two create poverty. What does poverty create? Poverty creates desperation. What are those? Are those crimes? No, those are social concerns. So why would you employ police officers to meet the root cause of crime? Police officers are not trained to alleviate poverty. They're not trained to alleviate, employment issues. They're trained to investigate and apply lethal force. Of course, they need to be members of our community and we need to engage them. But how are they going to fix the root cause of crime? They are there to show up when the crime happens. They're not social workers. So we need more social services, in my opinion, in those priority neighborhoods. Look at Living SJ's plan. They've collected a lot of data through their partners and they have good ideas. Let's do what they're doing, not put more police in there. There's data out there to say if you put more police in, there's more crime because police are there to find crime. And if you put them in a high priority neighborhood where we know there's poverty and low income, they're gonna find more crime. It's just my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Brent, what are your thoughts on community policing?
Well, I certainly I can't argue with Neil's passion on that, and he's absolutely right. You know, that's not police officers' job. That being said, sometimes there's a bit of a misunderstanding around community policing, and for me, you know, what do we do to alleviate some of these problems that Neil's talking about? You know, the broken window theory is one main reason that I started out to start the tool library with the community of people I was with in the South End, because we know that every broken window, every kicked down door creates a story and a narrative that this is a place that's not worth investing in. This is a place that's worth escaping. And it creates more crime, right? So we need to deal with those problems. But at a community policing level, you know, I know the people down at Pulse, and, you know, Living SJ has its data points for sure, but the real people on the front lines doing the work and know what needs to happen are people at Pulse, people at Waterloo Village Association, Crescent Valley, One Change North End, Carleton in the Lower West. And they appreciate when Officer Dwayne Squires, who currently is our community police officer, comes in. He's a presence. He has a team. That team has been cut. You know, police chiefs haven't valued. Police chiefs ultimately make the call. We give the money to the police chiefs, but we need to advocate for police chiefs to fund community policing because that de-escalates situations. It creates familiarity with who the officers are, and the officers are able to act more human, more intimate with the people who live there because they know them. And so I'm a fan of community policing, of course, and I want to be a counselor that grills our next chief, because we need one and we don't have one, to fund properly community policing and to make it a priority. Thanks.
Thank you, Brent. Steve, over to you.
Okay, well, both Neil and Brent touched on some points that I was going to touch on. That is, the problem in priority neighborhoods does come with the need for more mental health support, more social work support. And that isn't done by sending police in after a crime happens. As Brent said, community policing means letting the community get to know their police officers, having a relationship with those officers. That's where you get better citizens and better police. As a small business owner, I've had good interactions with the police, catching people that have done things in my business. But if we had the community police in the priority neighborhoods, riding around on their bikes, talking to the kids, talking to the citizens there, getting to know people, it would make the people there feel safer, feel like they could trust the police more, and hopefully let them know that they could call on them when they needed to. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Dean, I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Yes, thank you. Well, as some of you are aware, I did the policing for nearly 30 years. So community policing it does work. It continues to work. In 2017, they had 5 officers. They had 4 constables and a sergeant. Today, they're working with 2 constables and a sergeant. They're working at Crescent Valley, Waterloo Village, in the south end. So it's tough right now on the officers because they got to go to community meetings, and they're not out, I guess, with the general public. We have to be more proactive in this and not reactive. And, a positive interaction with the police and the community, that's what the police, the community policing is all about. It's to be there in the community to assist for whatever, issues or concerns comes up. When I was a constable, we relied a lot on the community police officers. When I became a supervisor, I could see it even more of the work that they did. So it is an important factor of the police force. And as a counselor, I would make sure that continued. The chief of police, they have a duty to run the organization. I wouldn't be there to run it, but I'd make sure that portion was there for the priority neighborhoods. It's been important for years, and it's got to continue. They've relied on the community police officers to be the go-between between, the police station and, their community. We got to keep that going. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Guy, c'est votre question maintenant.
Community policing is something really important. As someone over here say, we need more people that to go around, not really police, because people, when they see police, they see that it's something to create a problem to them. And also we have mental health problems. Do we have enough money to go around in the city to put some more workers, health workers on the street to work with them, to see exactly where we are going? Myself, they broke my car 3 times uptown, and right at work, right under my window. But these guys, they broke my car for what? Because I got a bag in there. It's a sport bag. They stole everything in it, but they're looking for money. Money for what? To go buy drugs. Not even to eat, to buy drugs. So we need to save that problem, help them. Make sure that we have people in the street. When they see a police, they run away. They don't think that this guy or that lady is coming to help or talking to them to save their problem, and help them to find something else. And the third thing is there is maybe no job for them. They are not finding job. There is not enough job for them. Nobody is working with them to say, okay, we're going to get you out of the street to put you on a job. So we need to have those health workers, those people, social workers, that to work with them and to be on the street, not to be sitting in the office. It's to be in the street, on the street, working with these people. The chief officer can give the mandate that he wants to every police, but the police have to work with the people, not to be there, not to be seen as someone that it's going to put them down.
Thank you. Thank you, Guy. Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you. Artie, we'll let you finish the discussion on the matter of community policing, past, present, and future.
Community policing is an important function in that it can build relationships and help facilitate initiatives such as programs that help in the prevention of drug use among children as they get older, crime prevention. I feel comfortable and confident with police officers in communities, and I think having community policing is an important way to build respect and trust The police officers have been role models in the past, and they can be role models in the future. I recall many police officers I befriended growing up. They were role models, and they helped guide me in certain things. Detective Fudge was one of those. As an elected member of St. John City Council, I will be a strong advocate for community policing. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. Well, that's it in terms of the 6 questions that we have shared with the candidates. Of course, these questions were all prepared by various community groups throughout the city, and we appreciate both their questions and the responses of all the candidates. I have, even though I'm a moderator and I'm biased with these sorts of things, I happen to think we've had a robust discussion. There's been a lot of diversity of thought here, and that's what we want, and I think that's what the voters want. We'll now turn to closing comments. I'll remind all the candidates that you have 2 minutes maximum. After 2 minutes, your mic is turned off. So we'll go in the opposite direction as we did at the start. So we'll start off our closing comments with Artie Watson. Artie, over to you.
Thank you to the facilitators and to the other candidates for taking the time to do this forum. Thank you to the voters for taking the time to listen and for your consideration. When considering to vote, please honor the sacrifices of those who gave their lives for our freedom to vote by stepping up to vote on May 10th. And please encourage your family and friends to do the same. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. Guy, c'est votre commentaire maintenant.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Thank you for having me tonight. Je me présente aux élections pour représenter des nouvelles valeurs, des nouvelles vibrations de la diversité à la ville de Saint-Jean, à City Hall. I'm running to present new ideas, new vibes, new value, and diversity at City Hall. You are electing a person that is dynamic, ready to work with everybody. No one will be left behind. Thank you.
Merci, Guy. Thank you very much. Dean, over to you for your closing comments.
Well, thank you, Kurt, and thank you to the other candidates. It was a great forum. I thought there was a lot of great information. We need to lead by example as city councilors, as employers, and as a city. We need to be listening to those in our communities, not simply to respond and move on, but rather to understand and take action with our citizens. I'm here to work for every citizen, being available, open, and ready to work. I will be here for 4 years. This is not a stepping stone. I'm here for this role. For everyone online, please go out and vote. And also, please be kind and be safe while we're voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Steve, over to you for your concluding thoughts.
Okay, I'd like to also thank the fellow candidates and you, Kurt, for putting this on with your team and for everybody that submitted the questions. Thank you. As for what I want to say to close, all of the issues that were brought forth in these questions are very important. In the end, what the most important issue of the day will be is the issues that the citizens bring to us on council. So whatever issues come up, make sure you contact whoever is in council representing you. Get out and vote for who you think can best represent you. That's what we want to. We want to see more people voting. So get out, show your support, and thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Brent, it's your turn now.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you to everybody. You know, St. John is a city that is reinventing itself as we speak. We are attracting record numbers of newcomers and other Canadians migrating from large urban centers, and they are attracted to our quality of life. Now is the time for our next council to respond to these opportunities with courage to build the city we need and the city we want. We don't have to be desperate as a city any longer. We can be bold. I have laid out for you tonight the main pieces of my platform, which is to focus on sustainability, livability, and housing. Beyond the specifics in these, I believe that one thing we can do as councillors with you, the voters, is communicate. I personally believe that our current Mayor Don Darling has given us the benchmark when it comes to good communications. Weekend live videos, strong social media engagement, and real-time responses to the citizens' questions. Whether or not I agree with Don's actions on everything is relevant. His communications have been stellar, and that's what I would want to replicate, and that's what I believe all councillors need to replicate for the next round of council. It's important. Finally, I want to be a councillor at large that shows up, especially to the areas of our community that have the deepest struggles. Our priority neighborhoods and community leaders working in them have shown how effective they can be. They have truly done a lot with a little. We need to find new ways of getting centers like the Carleton in the Lower West, Nick and Nicole, Pulse, Waterloo Village Association, and Crescent Valley the long-term operational funding they need to truly engage in the range of solutions that they are fighting for. On May 10th, and on the advanced polling coming up, I hope you'll vote Brent Harris for council at large. Thank you so much, Kurt.
Thank you, Brent. And of course, the thank you really is to the team at UNBSJ that put this together. I'm just some guy, some schmuck they asked to moderate. But with that, we'll turn to Neil, who gets to have the last word this evening. Neil, over to you.
I appreciate that. I want to thank the University of New Brunswick and St. John Urban and Community Studies Institute, first of all, for inviting me. I'm from St. John. I grew up in the South End in one of those priority neighborhoods, and I grew up playing in the other community priority neighborhoods because I was poor. I'm a lawyer now, but I know how it was to live in this town and have the experiences that a lot of our members are having now. A lot of my colleagues tonight have laid out some fantastic opportunities for change. Let's go get what's ours, St. John. As Brent said, this is not a desperate situation. This town, that is, this city, we have an opportunity for greatness, and we just need the right people to actually act on the commitments and the information we have. All the heavy lifting's been done, and I'd like to have an opportunity to implement those actions. So on May 10th, vote the real deal, Neil. And on May 1st and 3rd, vote the real deal, Neil Clements. I want to work for you and with you, St. John. Let's do this. Let's go get what's ours.
Thank you, Neil. And thank you all of the at-large candidates who chose to participate tonight. I think you've made for some tough choices for the voters. You've all shown an obvious passion for the city, and I say kudos to every one of you because this is fantastic. I'd also like to thank those who have listened online. I suspect that the number will only grow in the days to come as this forum is put on YouTube and social media and all the rest. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to the candidates, to the organizers, to UNBSJ, everyone who's helped put this candidate forum together. This live session, as I had mentioned, has been recorded and it will be posted online shortly. Please follow UNB St. John's Facebook page, facebook.com UNB St. John for updates on the forum recordings. So with that, I say good night. Remember, everyone, to get your shot when it's your turn in terms of vaccinations. And also, please, everyone, vote either at the advance polls or on May 10th. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. Good night.